Happy New Year, guys. Welcome back to the Strong Girl Goss podcast in 2025.
Happy January. I was about to say the date, but by the time you listen to this, it might not be the same date. Happy January, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hope you all had a restful period. We definitely had a rest. Well, I mean, we had a break from the podcast. Wonder who noticed. But we're ready to come back and give you guys all the tips you need to hear in the new year to start your 2025 off right. So with that, what are we chatting about today?
All of the goss.
All of the goss.
We're going to start this little January series we've got going on because what we thought is all the episodes in January could kind of have a purpose and all interlink and go into one another and serve the bigger purpose, if you like. So it's all going to be about like restarting the year, kickstarting in the right way, getting your routines in play, all of these things. So today's episode is actually just going to be a whole episode of important reminders and things that you might need to hear going into January, because it is the time of year where it naturally comes new year, comes like fresh energy and this desire to want to start something new and reinvent yourself, if you like. But I just think there's quite a lot of important reminders around this time of year that we all need to hear.
Definitely, especially because there's quite a lot of pressure, I will say. And also it's the time of year where you get quite a lot of conflicting opinions flying around on social media. I actually love social media at this time of year. I find it very motivating. I like the content people make, but also it can be quite overwhelming if you're not sure where to start or what to do. So a few little reminders to bring you back down to earth and remind you on what you need to be focusing on this year.
So starting off, first of all, with the first reminder, talking about social media. Should we start with that one?
Yeah.
What are you going to see on social media this month and, to be honest, for the rest of the year is not always reality. Everyone is always going to show their highs. They're very rarely going to show their lows. I'm guilty for it. I'm sure Ella is. Like, we are all guilty of majority of the time, really just showcasing what we want you to see. So I think that's a really important takeaway, especially as we go into January, especially when there's all these different fitness trends, diets going around, and when people are posting the highs from last year and the goals for this year, it can be really easy to just take it all and to really get consumed and lost with it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that, especially people like me and you, I feel like we do post this kind of thing, but if you do follow fitness creators, they are a lot of the time showing you their workouts, but won't necessarily show you their rest days. So it is important to remember that there is a whole picture that you're not seeing, whether that be positive, negative, rest days, training days, and just don't take it for gospel and just do your own thing, stay in your own lane.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this leads us quite nicely onto the next one, which is you don't need to jump on the next trend or the next fitness challenge this January. If it does not align with you or your goals, then you don't need to do it. There's so many going around at the moment. You've got 75 hard, 75 medium soft. There's like loads of variations now. But there's all sorts that you'll see in January. There's like the Gymshark 66. That's more like habit, isn't it? So quite like the concept of that. And a lot of the challenges are quite like the concept of, but often people just jump on them immediately because they almost feel like this rush in January to be like, I've got to rush getting into my fitness journey. I've got to start now. And it's like, instead of actually just taking a second to go, okay, what do I actually want to achieve? Do these challenges even align with the goals that I have got? It can be really easy to just jump on them straight away. So I think it's an important reminder to be like, not every challenge is going to be for you. Personally, a lot of the challenges that are going around at the moment are a big red flag for me. Like, I'm like, no, they do not serve me. They would not serve my goals. So I'm going to stay well aware. But linking in with social media, it can be easy to be like, they're doing it. Maybe I should be doing it.
Yeah, and it's not even just goals, is it? It's, does that fit with my lifestyle? I could categorically, and this is coming from someone who works in a gym. One of these challenges is to do 2 workouts a day. Categorically could not fit that into my lifestyle. And I'm not sure, to be honest, who with a real job can. So it's just looking at whether, yes, it aligns with your goals, but does it fit with your lifestyle? Is it going to overwhelm you? There's all these challenges that you could jump onto that you're seeing on social media, but they might not actually give you the outcome that you even want.
And I think just leaving on that note, let's talk about 75 hard. Just taking one example, by the way.
I mean, it was the elephant in the room, wasn't it?
No, we know that there's many challenges this time of year. I'm just choosing that one because it's the first that comes to my brain. But taking that for one example, right? Why does fitness have to be hard and heavy? Why does it have to be hard? Like, it really doesn't. And do you know, if you are someone listening to this who loves to go hardcore, you go, girl. Like, you go smash it. Really happy for you. But for the majority of you listening, if you are watching and listening to this podcast, the chances are it's because you like sustainable fitness, because that's what me and Ella are all about. So I just want to remind you that it doesn't need to be hard and heavy. It doesn't need to be hard this January. You don't need to be doing 2 workouts a day. You don't need to be going having no cheat meals, whatever that means. You don't need to be going to extremes. And I think that's really, really, that's something that everyone needs to hear and just be reminded of. Like, you will, when you see this as a lifestyle, there's no need to rush. Like,
exactly.
Timeless.
I think it's important to remember with stuff like that that's not the only way to make progress. There's a phrase that I often use, is like, you're working harder, not smarter. And that is literally what 75 hard for me is anyway. Yes, you can do all these really hard things that are literally going to burn you out for 75 days, but you might get the same outcome by just working a little bit smarter and being more precise with where you're putting your time than just burning yourself into the ground. So step back, ask yourself, is it worth it? Is there a smarter way of doing this? Because likelihood is there is.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leaves us into the next point of sustainability is key, right? What you do now, like, even if it's just really small habits, what you do every day is going to make a big difference in the long run. Like, all the small habits add up over time. Rather than going into it's the all or nothing mindset. That's what a lot of these challenges are, isn't it? But like, rather than jumping into the all mindset of being like, right, I need to do this, diet needs to be on point, I need to be working out every day, I need to do this. Like, just think about one thing that you can do for your health every single day that will eventually make such a big impact. And before you know it, these habits have really cemented in that they are just second nature for you, and they are serving you and your goals in a much more positive way than unsustainable, unhealthy, quick kind of fad habits and challenges would.
Yeah, look, me and Jess have coached, like, between us, hundreds of women, and you will agree with me, Jess, in that, like, people aren't getting to where they want to be by completely overhauling their life overnight. And this is, I think, coming on to the next reminder, things do not have to change overnight just because it's the first week of January. Like, in fact, that is probably going to set you off on the wrong foot for the entire year. Because what happens there is you tell yourself, I'm going to count my calories, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to make all these changes to my life. You're overwhelmed, and actually you end up not really making any of those changes and overwhelming yourself and just saying, do you know what, forget it all. Whereas if you're like, right, I'm going to eat 3 balanced meals a day and focus on protein for each of those meals. That's the only thing I'm going to do to change my January, let's say. You're probably much better off doing that. And then once you've got that nailed and that becomes a habit, moving on to the next thing, adding in another habit, maybe it's a workout a week or whatever it is, you're just going to be much more set up for a better year because you're building up the habits sustainably. So don't feel like you need to change everything overnight because it's not realistic.
One thing I'd say on that is sit and think, where do I want to be by the end of 2025? Not where do I want to be next month, in 2 months. Because when you go in with that mindset, it's never going to be a good approach. Like, it just isn't. There's such a rush from everyone. Do you not find like everyone's just in such a rush to like drop pounds or to achieve this? And I think if you actually just take a second to zoom out and say, where do I want to be by the end of the year? Like, what steps can I like take to ensure that I'm getting there? you will find that your progress is better than ever and the journey is so much more enjoyable, which I think is the most important thing. Like, if you're not enjoying what you are doing every day, going back to the first point I made, health and fitness doesn't need to be hard and heavy. If it is hard and it is like taking so much from you and you are not enjoying it and you're having to cut things out and you go into extremes, like, what's the point? Like, what is the point? Why would you want to make yourself so miserable? And like, I just don't get it. Like, I do get it because I've been there, and I'm sure you have in the past, Ella, as well. Like,
Yeah.
we have been there, but now we are here to tell you to not do that, because honestly, like, the second that I decided to just chill out and be like a bit more relaxed and build sustainable habits and treat this as a lifestyle, my results were so much better. Strength, health, physique, everything was so much better.
Yeah, because, it is a lifestyle, and I don't think anyone in their life has ever done a fad diet or a crash this or crash that and been like, yeah, that was a great idea and I have really lasting results from that and everything feels really good and sustainable. Like, no one ever said that. And I think a good reminder to lead on to is don't feel the need to step on the scales.
Yes. Yeah, this is an important one at this time of year, especially as we've just come off the back of Christmas, or to be honest, even at any time of the year, because I'm not a fan of scales personally, but especially this time of year, like, the likelihood is you're probably going to be holding on to water retention right now. And I've had so many messages from clients this week alone being like, oh no, like the scale says this, and feel a bit disappointed. And sometimes they just need to hear exactly what we're going to tell you now, of like, that number should not define you, should not define your progress, your happiness, nothing. And I think, especially, again, like when you've been eating different foods and consuming maybe alcohol or just whatever, like, our bodies are going to...
Lack of sleep for a lot of us.
There isn't there? Like, when you are out of routine is a simple way to put it. Like, you are going to be fluctuating on the scale. So I am actually celebrating 1 whole year of not stepping on a scale. Last January,
Woo!
I know, buzzing. Last January, I decided to honestly just put them in the bin. I don't need them anymore. And it's now been a whole year. I mean, I can't remember the date, obviously, but I'm just celebrating a whole year of just not going anywhere near them. And I think, just as a reminder for everyone, a really important reminder, not just this time of year, but always, like, you don't need the scale to tell you how well you are doing.
Yeah, and it's very rare that the scales will align with anyone's goal. Even if your goal is fat loss and you want to, quote unquote, see a different number on the scale, you're going to be weight training to achieve that fat loss, because that is a very important part of what you're going to be doing. But with that weight training, your body composition is going to change. The scales has no idea whether you're on your period, whether you've had alcohol, whether you have more muscle on your body. So the number you see on the scale is, like Jess said, a really inaccurate representation of your progress. So don't feel like you need to be jumping on that and seeing differences or having a start point, because likelihood is, if you're doing all the right things, you're not going to see crazy mega changes on that scale, because it's just not aligned with your progress. And actually, the only reason I ever go on scales now, and I don't own one myself, it's always at like someone's house, but it's to see how much I weigh in comparison to what I can lift, which I think is a full circle moment in itself. I'm like, wait, can I deadlift my body weight? Or, so
I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely not the be all and end all. And actually it can just be really unhelpful, because for a lot of people it is quite triggering. So just bin it.
My last reminder for the scale would be, if you do find it triggering, like you've just said, and if you do find that your mood is attached to it. And what I mean by that is, it makes you feel sad when it's gone up or it stayed the same, but it also makes you feel happy and you celebrate when it goes down, like in the reverse. Both of those are red flags, because if you are celebrating it when it's going down, it is going to impact your mood when it's going up, and vice versa. And if you do find that you have that kind of attachment to the scale, my biggest advice would honestly just be to get rid of them and just to not measure your progress in that way this year, because you really just don't need them. And who knows, maybe you'll be celebrating in January 2026 a whole year of not going on them.
Year anniversary.
Yeah. Going on to the next one. You don't have to go on a diet just because it's January. I'm talking more like nutrition here, but like you don't have to start following a certain diet, start cutting your calories down, you know, really cutting out all your favourite foods just because it's January. I feel like there's a lot of pressure around diet at this time of year. And I just think for anyone who does need the reminder, like you don't need to go on a diet if that is not right for you right now.
It's like monkey see, monkey do, isn't it? Like in one way you see loads of other people going on a diet, you're like, should I be doing this? And then in another way, you know, you maybe dieted your whole life in January, and every January has been miserable because you've been trying to put yourself on this diet. So for some people it can just be routine, that's what they always do. But just check yourself, step back, and actually see if that still aligns. You know, I feel like going back to the social media thing that we said at the beginning, like it's not going to be right for everyone, and it's not going to be right for everyone at every single point in their life. So don't feel like you need to make big restrictions or changes to your diet just because it's January.
You can be happy with yourself just because it's a new year, you know? You don't have to do something different to then be happy with yourself. I think we all need that reminder.
Yeah. Coming on to one of my last ones, don't feel like you need to restrict, which is very similar to the diet thing. But with that, also don't do too much in the gym. So we need to be eating enough and resting enough. Kind of links back to the 75 hard and stuff like that, but don't feel like in order to make progress you need to cut your calories. You need to be training 6 days a week in the gym. Rest is productive, food is fuel. These are things we must remember in January, because I feel like there's a lot of like strip it all back, go as hard as you can, and we just need that reminder that rest is needed to make that progress.
Overtraining is good for no one. Don't care what anyone.
Not getting you to your goal.
2 workouts a day? No. You
just not for me, darling.
Anyway, my last one, final one, and I think this again is a really important takeaway, but if you have come into the new year and you actually don't have any goals, or you don't have any desire to change what you are doing right now, maybe you maintained your routine through December, maybe you started a new training plan at the start of December so you don't feel like you want a new one at the start of January, like that is okay. You do not need new, exciting, shiny goals just because it's a new year. Yes, like new year brings fresh energy, and it's sometimes a good time to sit down, reflect, set goals. But I just wanted to remind anyone that, you know, hasn't got the urge for that right now. They are happy with themselves at the minute. They're happy with their routine. Like that's great for you. Like you don't need to just be setting goals for the sake of setting them. You can set goals and change your life at any point of the year. It does not have to be in January.
Yeah, I saw something on Instagram the other day that was like, let's just remember we're still in winter. It's still like hibernation mode, and spring for a lot of us is the better time to set goals. So it's totally normal to not feel inclined to change your whole life or, you know, set any goals just because it's the new year. It's really just a construct. So don't feel the pressure.
But I hope at least one of these reminders has been something that you needed to hear. But thank you so much for listening into our first episode of 2025. And we aim to be just as consistent as we was last year.
Consistent queens, and so are you.
But no, we'll be bringing you lots more exciting episodes in the upcoming week, guys. So make sure that you are subscribed or you are following if you want to keep up to date.
Yeah, we've got lots of exciting stuff coming. So we will see you next week.
See you later.
Bye.